Hello, everyone. My name is Mola Deji, and welcome to another episode of The Village You Don't See. Our show highlights individuals, entrepreneurs, and their support system. Today, we're talking to Meagan Bowman. Meagan is the founder and CEO of Stonehenge Technology Labs, a tech startup here in Northwest Arkansas. Stonehenge is the startup behind Stopwatch. I know you've heard of it. Stopwatch is all-you-can-eat omni-channel software that helps CPG companies win in the digital space. Prior to Stonehenge, Meagan has worked for Hallmark, the Mars agency, and she also ran e-commerce for Harvest Group, and also was the co-founder of One Stone Consulting. Hey, Meagan, thank you so much for coming through and blessing us.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So, Meagan, I'm looking through your profile, and so how did this thing come about, this digital space? It looks like you've really spent a lot of your life in this tech space. So what was it about tech for you?
That's a great question. So I will say that when we think about tech, I am not, face and code like a lot of the amazing people that work on my team. So
Yeah.
I would probably fit more in the more the data science slash product management vision piece of the technology. And really, I love retail
Yeah.
and consumer behavior and that sort of thing. And really what's been fun about, starting in, more of the e-commerce space back before it was kind of cool,
Yeah.
was I love the way that you could use your analytical brain
Yeah.
to put together ways that shoppers could interact with your product that didn't necessarily require a whole lot of creativity, like the natural creativity. And I
Yeah.
thought, gosh, if I can do, sell more by using math and some basic principles, that's really fun. Buyers
Yeah.
make choices based on their intuition and their, all sorts of trends and that sort of thing. And I just got enamored with the idea of being able to push products to people without honestly having to go through a buyer.
Yeah.
That anybody could buy anything at any time. And it didn't have to be on an end cap or a rack or whatever. So that's really kind of how I stumbled into it.
Awesome. So as you think, I mean, the last 2 years has been digital heaven, right? And we're seeing trends that have, that we were projecting probably will happen in the next 10 years come in the last 2 years, right? So um, where, how did Stopwatch come about? So was that something you guys were working on, or was that something that you were looking at and you were like, okay, this thing is about to go serious. We got to bring in another software, because I'm just looking at what that software offers, and it's awesome.
Oh, thanks. No, I wish I was that smart and fast. No, we've been working on Stopwatch for about 5 years, and
Whoa.
to
Wow.
be totally honest, I love the title of your show, "The Village You Don't See," because it implies that there's just a lot of hard stuff
Yeah.
and stuff that relationships encourage you as you go and that sort of thing. And I would say that we were very ahead in terms of the bet that we placed. So
Yeah.
I moved here from Seattle after really understanding Amazon, and I moved to Northwest Arkansas to be close to consumer packaged goods companies.
Yeah.
And I knew that Amazon was a really strong force, but there was no way that it was going to be able to hold on at the might that it was
Yes.
forever. And so
Yes.
we really took a bet that every retailer, from Kroger to Instacart to, well, Instacart wasn't around, but Kroger to Walmart to Target to whatever, we're going to give Amazon a run for their money. And we ended up
Yeah.
moving here when it was announced that Walmart was going to buy Jet.
Jet. Okay. Okay.
So that's when, that's really when I started, architecting Stopwatch pretty aggressively, saying, okay, Mark, I'd seen some of Mark Lurie's kind of early integration work when I was up at Amazon, and it was good. And so we just took a bet. I'll tell you though, Mo, we had the pandemic not hit, we've always had wonderful conversations with really smart people inside of consumer packaged goods companies.
Yeah.
Kind of telling them, hey, what, this is where things are headed. This is what the software that we're building for it, and we would oftentimes get the response, wow, that sounds like a really important thing, but it is absolutely not urgent.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. Like you could, you put another facing on a shelf in Walmart and, your business goes through the moon. At the time, maybe what, 2-3%, maybe was
penetration.
So, yeah. So when you're coming in saying, hey, invest now, in this technology and they're like, oh, so is this an Amazon thing? I'm like, no, I mean, yes, but it's beyond Amazon. And at this point, the CEOs are like, I can't even figure out Amazon. What are you even talking about?
Yeah.
So, it was a lot of, the reason that Stopwatch is as robust as it is because we architected it really deep and really wide from the very beginning. And I always joke that, honestly, I'm sure we would have been taken care of, but we would have run out of money had COVID not hit. People just were not adopting to it as fast. Again, it wasn't that they didn't like the software or the concept, it was that they had a lot of other priorities for their business, and kind of bringing in kind of a very futuristic planning module really wasn't on their radar. And so I always joke that we were, we had this really expensive car that we were about to scrap for parts right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and all those
upgraded the car.
All those CEOs that had remembered talking to us, started calling and saying, hey, I think we need this, and it literally was kind of overnight that everything took off.
A friend of mine used to say, sometimes you don't know it's raining until you get wet, right? So, so a lot of guys got wet, right? And the situation is, even still in the industry, people are kind of like one toe in, one toe out too, right? And I think the leaders are the ones that are embracing it, because I mean, as we look at here, there's the day coming where I'm sure 40% of our 40 to 50% will start digitally, right? I love the stores, started in retail, love to walk into the stores, but I can tell you, I don't do I don't do any of my stock up trips in the stores anymore. Everything starts from a digital platform, and I don't get into stores. The only time I get into a store is probably on a fill-in trip. And I know what I'm looking for, so I'm not even looking for disruption then, right? So.
Well, you and me, think about like our kids and the kids that are in college who are absolutely, having discretionary income within the next 10 years.
Yeah.
My son doesn't, like, when I ask him where he gets something, he'll say YouTube.
Yeah.
And so we're ordering stuff from all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't even know where it's
Instagram, and now we're buying NFTs on the blockchain.
That's what it's funny. I keep telling people, I'm like, well, our kind of, more .NET framework, very disciplined ERP kind of normalization software wasn't cool, and then it became cool, and then it became not cool again, because like all the kids are ordering from like these like mystery places.
It's like a 360 is going around. So let me throw something at you. So now entrepreneur, you've been an entrepreneur for at least the last 4 years? 4?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. So how's your day changed from like when you used to be at Harvest Group, and not necessarily, I won't say 8 to 5, but that kind of structured to this now realm of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will tell you that, and I can't wait to listen to more of your shows for other people to answer this question. I wrote business plans, you know, from age 4. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And when I was about 22, I think I had $15,000 I'd scraped together, and I went to a woman who was a very strong entrepreneur in town and asked her to mentor me, and said I was going to start my own business. And she said, hey, you know, love the business plan. It was, you know, kind of shoddy. And she said, but what I would do is why don't you work under me for a couple of years and, you know, see what it's like to really kind of do this thing. And, you know, you'll learn, you know, with me, and, you know, I take on all the risk. And so that was kind of how I started. I actually learned under Lori Coulter, who's the founder and CEO of Somersault, out of St. Louis. At the time, it was Lori Coulter True Measure, and I mean, she has an incredible story in and of itself. So, you know, I started my first job was for a founder, and then, you know, then we, you know, had kids, and you know, I just knew that I wasn't in a place in life to start what I needed to start. But I knew that I always knew that we would start something. And so really, you know, the move to Northwest Arkansas was an kind of a stake in the ground. I knew what we were going to go build. I wasn't sure how we were going to build it, and what data inputs we needed to test it and feel, you know, find out if it was even going to be a thing. And so, you know, the journey between, you know, moving here for Hallmark and then going to the Mars agency and then Harvest Group was really, the whole time I was really working on this concept quite a bit. And it really wasn't until Bill Weitzman at the Harvest Group kind of said, hey, I like what you're doing. Let's go do this. And so he was really instrumental in kind of getting me out of my comfort zone and starting.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's a definitely great story. And just understanding that you were also able to just put your, you know, your selfish business plan aside and work under somebody to learn, right?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that it at the time it felt, I just giggle because I mean, I was nowhere near ready. And it's seriously like, I would not be where I am today had I not been part of a founding team. And I tell that to my team all the time. The 3 guys that are with us have been with me for 4 years, and I tell them they are founders. And my hope is, you know, when it's time for them to move on, that they go and, you know, found their own business. And it hopefully had such great, you know, learnings of all of the problems and issues that they've seen me go through, that you know, that they would become smarter founders faster. And that's really what happened. So I feel like I kind of got a good hack.
No, that's definitely awesome. So you so now let's look at Northwest Arkansas. You know, I think you're the first tech company I know in Northwest Arkansas that I've heard that, you know, got big seed monies on the internet, so we can say. So you guys raised $2 million. First of all, congrats, because knowing some startup and what you need to do in that fundraising time is a lot of work. So more grease to your elbow, as they say. Good job.
Yes, sir. I think I notched up 863 no's.
Oh my goodness, right? They, you know, you'll laugh later. They'll come back. And say, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say no." But I want to hit on something. So with the last stats I looked at, 28% of women, you know, are in this tech environment, right? I know the numbers are steadily growing. I think it was 26% in 2020. And now about 28% of, you know, women in tech environment, they don't work in tech, found in tech. And I know you say you're not the one behind the screen, but you're still an owner of a tech company, right?
Yeah, I definitely understand it. Yep.
And, you know, so what are some of the challenges you faced or you've heard from other women in tech that just say, why is there such a barrier for women to be in this environment? Why is it just so male dominated?
Yeah, that's a good question. I truly attribute it to, you know, I actually wrote code when I was second, third grade.
Yeah.
And by no fault of my parents' own, they just didn't celebrate it. Like they didn't know what it was. They didn't think it was
Yeah.
cool. And so, as a kid, at least with my disposition, I just kind of was like, okay, well, I guess that's not going to get me attention. That's not something I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I really think, I think had I stayed with it, I actually would be a really great coder. The challenge is that I just never saw that as a model, and I think that's why a lot of people like my age, like I'm in my 40s, it's pretty unusual to have a female technologist at my age. That being said, you go down 10 years and there's a lot more, and then you go down 10 years below that and there's even more. So I really do believe it has a lot to do with you act like what you see, and you want to be who you look up to. And they're just at least in my ecosphere, there wasn't anybody any females that were technologically driven in my upbringing.
And I'm hoping things like Girls in Tech, Girls for Tech, and all those new STEM programs coming up also probably will help down the line.
Oh, I love those programs, and they're so fun. Like they are so much fun. And I think one thing I love about the art of technology, and I think women and men just in general bring really different kind of perspectives to the table. And I love seeing a group of women kind of work together on a project. And I obviously love seeing a group of men work together on a project too, but just even that, agile methodology and, the way people work together, just having more diversity, whether it be, gender or age or skill level or socioeconomic background or, skin color, whatever, it actually makes the technology better because everybody's a user, right?
Yes. Not well said. Yes. So now let's pivot a little bit and talk about the show, The Village You Don't See. Let's talk about Meagan's Village. I mean, you don't have to name names. You can name parties like but what's your village like?
I'm crying right now.
Oh.
I wouldn't be here. I have I'm 43, and I don't think there's anybody that I have ever worked alongside that has not been really, really impactful on me. I never was a very good, like I was always the person when I wasn't in working for Lori under foundership, when I went into kind of more industry, I was never the person that followed the rules. But I always really had some mentors kind of looking out for me, kind of kicking my butt. Kind of trying to smooth the edges, really all the way from my early 20s through today. And the man that I meet with every single week actually gave me my first performance review when I was 24, and he made me cry. I mean, it was the first time somebody had told me that I just wasn't doing a good job, and now he's the president of our board. So I just feel like a lot of people have had the commitment and grace to really coach me, to be kind of hard on me, but then also just not leave. So I mean, the names are just flying through my head, but
you don't have to name names, but just I think thank you for just being real. And I think the reason why is that in every situation, like especially as an entrepreneur, you're going to have your bad days and you're going to have your good days, right? I'm sure when you closed your seed funding, it was a great day, right? But I'm sure when you're going through the grueling process of getting that seed funding was probably some very low days. So when we kind of look at those days, who does Meagan go to in those days?
It's a great question. One one thing that I'm so glad about what you're doing is, and I don't know the answer to it. And I'm not as far, I mean, we're about ready to raise Series A, and I'm excited about that. But I will say, early, especially pre-seed, it's kind of dangerous to tell people how you feel.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, because whether or not they want to invest, or whether or not they want to support, you're not, at that point you're very risky, and the more emotional, or the more you feel down or appear to be discouraged, it just kind of makes people run away, right? And so what I had to do really, and I'm a super emotional person, so what I had to do really early on, especially heading into the seed round, and that took about a year. So I mean, it was a long year. But what I had to do was kind of, I hate to say it, but kind of put relationships into two buckets. One was, hey, if this thing if this thing takes off, like, they're not going to care so much. If this thing tanks, they're still going to be here. And so those were the people that, I had on a list that I was just like, they're not going to invest money. They're not going to tell their friends. They know who I am. They know that if I'm having a really bad day, that I'm not really going to give up, even though I say that I want to. And then there was, kind of this other group of mentors and people that I was getting to know, especially around the Northwest Arkansas area, who really were potential, investors or partners or whatever. And it was really hard for me to kind of start, making sure that I knew who I was talking to, and what they needed to hear out of me. And I'm not usually like that. I'm not guarded at all, but that was one thing that I really learned, and I didn't do it right all the time. But that was the hardest thing. And so, when you talk about the village you don't see, at the end of the day, both are really important, right? Like, but for me, still being early in the journey, the people who, were slipping me, $10,000 under their doormat, so I could make payroll. Those are the people that, I really, really, really am grateful for.
Oh man, oh gosh, that's a good, no, that's a good, and also, Megan, I just say thank you for just being transparent. And I'm hoping that this also helps people that are out there thinking, man, I want to start the next taco joint and stuff. And they might listen to it and be inspired to say, man, it's not always going to be great. There are going to be things that come,
It's funny too, though, because literally, I mean, I don't mean to be dramatic, but the seed thing just was not, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And the reason being is because to have so much passion about what you're doing, and to talk to so many people about it, and have the majority of people, I mean, 99% of the people that you really want to impress, I mean, just really give you, pretty much the whole, just like, no, I don't get what you're doing. I don't really care. I don't think it's right. I mean, just the going through that over and over again. And so I had a really tough skin. But, it was, I can't, anybody who's in that position, who's listening to this, please call me.
Yes, call me.
I'm an emotional investor, not a risk crazy investor. So you don't have to be worried that I would never give you money. Or never invest. I just know that feeling. And I think the more human you are, the more real the journey is.
Yeah. As I say, no pain, no gain, right? And there were some pains, but I mean, I know you're not probably where you want to be, and I know there's more things to come with you guys at Stonehead Labs and Stopwatch and all that stuff. But I mean, just looking at the reviews of people that have gotten your product and how you're differentiating yourself, I think, I mean, it's nothing but bright skies over your company, Meg, in the coming years. So I'm excited to continue to see what you guys continue to do. But before I have one last question. This is the fun part. So how do you guys generate ideas? How does that process? Who are those people? They might be different from your emotional, the people you talk to when you're emotional, the people you talk to when things are not going well. Well, that idea generation, because it's probably the funnest things you guys do, right? When you say, okay, what do we do next?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do I say this? Um, so I feel like I got to play in that space pretty heavily about 3 or 4 years ago. So right when, I mean, I'll just say it, when Bill Waitsman started to believe in me was when
Yeah,
I felt like once I got some some like backing,
yeah,
I had a lot of fun dreaming, for a good year and a half. What happened though, and it's good, is now, then you got to go into the execution phase. So
yeah, yeah,
really, ever since Stopwatch has kind of, had its first line of code, my job now is to give other people space on my team to have the great ideas. And I have three jobs. One is to keep the money coming in.
yeah,
Two is to recruit the best talent, and three is to make sure they know where we're going.
yes.
And so those three things, believe it or not, are not as creative and idea generating as I
Yeah.
wish, but I actually get really stoked when the team comes together with something. Um, so it's a different kind of feeling. The way the team's just awesome. They
Yeah.
just kind of riff. I we'd have to bring them on to ask them how they
No,
come up with the
no.
really good.
We might have to, once COVID is over, we might have to have like an in-person face.
Oh, it'd be so fun.
That'll be just to talk to the whole team and maybe roast you a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, so many stories. Oh, I used to. You'll love this. And they know what I'm talking about. When somebody wouldn't like our product early on, you
Yeah.
know, I just have never been, and I would just get so mad at them. So I would like try to sell the product, but then they would say no, and then I'd hang up the phone and literally be like, "What's wrong with them?" And they just used to say that I would have these like horrible temper tantrums
Yeah.
about just like people that they're like, "You are the worst salesperson ever." I'm like, I know. I just yell at people.
Oh my goodness. Hey, they just did not get the passion you were putting in, and you're
Oh
like,
my gosh.
oh
Like
my
I
goodness,
just
I'm telling you, this is what you need, and they couldn't
I
see.
know it was so
They were looking at
embarrassing.
the clouds. They were like, I know it's not raining yet,
I
right?
know exactly. Yeah, I kept saying it was like the sky is falling, and people would be like, "Okay, lady." And that's something I struggle with now. But like I don't know if other entrepreneurs struggle with this, but there's something about kind of not being cool that is like part of our DNA. Like
Yeah,
not winning is kind of like my jam. And so when you start to kind of be perceived as a winner, and like you're actually doing something where most people I talk to now, they know exactly what I'm doing,
yeah,
and they're excited about it, and there's always that kind of like, well, where were you 6 years ago? So
yeah.
there's always
You're in
kind
a
of this
different
underdog,
space right now, right?
like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
I
you're
don't know
like,
what that is.
I'm not used to this. It's like the person that was just a normal person, and they get a nice billboard in LA, right? And it's, oh yeah, I saw you on that billboard. I saw you everywhere you guys saw. And you're like, okay, I'm not used to being on. But I
Yes.
mean, I think you got to look at it in two ways. One is, I think the private people like me that just look at you and just respect the heck out of what you've done, right? I mean, I don't know your total story till today, but when I look and say, huh, man, that was a great story. I'm looking at how, then you can also see the process and the journey just looking through the amount of places you've been in touch, right? Then talking about leaving Seattle and coming to Northwest Arkansas, that's a woman on a mission right there. You know what I mean? I mean, gosh, people just don't leave and come to Northwest Arkansas from Seattle. I mean, you just left good seafood to come where they fly seafood in.
You'll listen, because you have your background in Walmart, and I will never forget this. So, growing up in Seattle, kind of in an Amazon environment,
Yeah,
they just did not like, they thought I was crazy. Like Walmart to them was just such a mystery. And then when I got to Northwest Arkansas, and I would talk about my experience at Amazon, people would look at me like, you think that thing's really going to take off? Like, it's just so funny how like both groups, I don't think were really too like aware of one another.
Yeah.
They became aware of one another, and now it's like, a total fight. But I just remember, I don't know, it's just funny, kind of being on both sides.
Yeah, I knew Amazon was going to take off when, like, every other day my wife had some box and it said Amazon. I'm like, oh gosh, we're in trouble. And that's when I knew, hey, but it's funny. I think also, as you said, retail is real fun, and just understanding the consumer, and as the consumer has also changed, and also knowing that, the baby boomers, like, then you have the Gen X, then you have the millennials and Gen Ys that are really about to take this thing off. To your point, they're buying stuff from weird sites we don't know. They're changing, and I mean, their buying power is slightly growing. So as they come into it, it's going to be a different game. And, companies like yours are going to help CPG companies,
Well,
grow.
that's the crazy thing, but when like it's really, I haven't shared this, but I'd like to if we have another minute.
Yeah, we do.
When my son was about 11, he did not want to mow the grass, and he started going to thrift stores and selling, Nike stuff through an Amazon third party, like a little
Yeah.
marketplace that he
Yeah.
had, and eBay and all that stuff. And he made, I think he sold more Nike on Amazon than Nike sold on Amazon
Yeah.
for a couple of years there. And what really shocked me in that whole situation was, here's an 11, 12, 13-year-old kid who's like kind of kicking Nike's butt.
Yeah.
And the things that he was doing were really simple. It was, number one, he had his hands on the keyboard all the time.
Yeah.
Number two, he was always watching his competition. Number three, he was always coming up with, and he didn't have ad dollars and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And really, that's when I thought, because at the time we didn't know what Stopwatch was actually, who our ideal customer profile was going to be. But at the time, really, and I'm not a big company kind of person, but I told my husband, I said, the underdogs in this whole race are actually going to be, the P&Gs that have been on top for so long.
Yeah.
And my husband was like, that's not like you to like go after the masses. And I'm like, no, seriously, like they're the ones that can't move like an 11-year-old.
No.
So a Stopwatch can come in and help them kind of think, act, and be able to move faster, like like a kid. That's going to be what they need. And that was kind of an interesting pivotal point in understanding kind of what our software was going to like, what purpose it was going to have.
And also, I mean, you hit on another thing. And if you think about it from a product perspective, your son probably knew the Nikes that were hot, the Nikes that were appreciated. He was so more in tune with his consumer base, right? That probably also helped him in terms of, then also just the instant gratification of now. I mean, someone was telling me that today, and in the age, a couple of entrepreneurs I've talked to, like, if you're not on Instagram, regardless of what you are, Instagram is like the new business card. I'm like, what? What does that mean? Like, well,
no, we are so uncool right now, though. I just want to get it.
So I said, whoa, they're like, yeah, you got to be on digital, right? Now, people with products I also doing TikTok stuff, but I'm saying, like, there's this instant gratification of whether it's content and stuff, people, and I'm not saying TV and stuff.
I think it comes so naturally to them. That's what I always used to joke, as I was, I used to get to talk to big groups of, really, really smart MBAs or whatever. And I'd say, guys, I hate to say it, but we need to be watching our teenagers more. Like, we can, the stuff that we talk about in marketing on a big, whiteboard for 3 hours, and then we go have coffee. Like, the kids are just actually doing that. They're natively, they're better marketers than we are, and we've paid for giant educations to get marketing.
I know. And they know the newer platform. They're in tune, right? We know we know the platforms when they become cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
But these kids have been, folks are advertising on video games, interfaces and stuff now, and because they know the consumer base they're trying to reach, right? And everything is getting digital right now. So if you're not interacting on a digital scale, then how much of your impressions are really coming in contact with your consumers? So, we say something like, we can convert a customer after they see like 7 or 8 impressions of what we're selling, right? Then we tie it in with our offer and blah, blah, blah. I think the marketing people might fire me for that. I don't know how many impressions. But the point is that if you're on TV and they're not watching TV, those impressions are gone, right? Then how you getting them on a digital, on a TikTok influential, using influencers and stuff like that. So that is awesome. This is this is such a cool conversation, Meagan.
I heard this the other day and it blew my mind. So yeah, I'm not, Stopwatch can integrate with marketing, kind of, display advertising and ad optimization. That's not really like Stopwatch doesn't inherently do those things. It absolutely ingests from really good people who do.
Yeah,
But that's not kind of native to our platform.
yeah.
And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they heard it quoted that the average American scrolls on their phone the length of the Eiffel Tower every day.
Oh my goodness.
Does that not like,
Blow my mind right there.
yeah, and it was in the context of saying like the goal now is just to have somebody slow down and swipe just a little bit slower
Yeah,
on yours, so like in terms of big graphics and disruption and all that stuff, it's like
yeah.
at a whole new level where you just want somebody to stop scrolling.
I mean, so what does that mean? Your ads got to be
Oh,
shorter and they got to be catchier. Or what? I mean,
I
because,
don't know. Yeah, maybe
yeah,
big black blocks. I don't know.
yeah.
Like, you don't know.
But I can see that though. Now that you say it, blows me, but I'm saying, man, how many times do I just scroll, scroll, scroll? But I would say,
Thumb goes up. I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy.
And that's why we all having neck pains now and seeing chiropractors, because we're all bent, hunched over, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And we're scrolling now till we even lay down in bed, right? We're still scrolling in bed. So,
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. Well, I'm
all the,
curious to know, as when you started this show, what was your heart? Like, what was your hope? Because I love the introduction, and you know, I'm just excited to hear your hope for this podcast.
so what's my North Star for it? Is the,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was really about, so it started out because I met a friend for coffee in Pinnacle, and he was like, man, we're talking, and he said, Mo, like you connect with people, and um, he's like, I feel like people, even the way I used to work, and he's like, I just feel like people come to you and ask you questions about stuff and, career and all that stuff. And, you know, my background was, I came from Nigeria to the States, and and that's a story I probably will tell down the podcast. And I
I
came
think
here,
you do. Yeah.
and I came here by myself, and the American dream, and God has blessed me to where I am today in Northwest Arkansas, and having to work for top CPG companies.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had that growing up. I left my parents at, I don't say a young age. I think I was 19. I'm 40 now, but trying to figure it out in a new country. So I listened, and I just feel like when younger people come to me and talk to me, ask me for career, I just really tell them things that I went through, right, in terms of that. And I felt like for a second, I felt like I wanted to do something, but I felt like I'm a people person, so you had to do something with people. And
Mhm.
I had a couple of friends, and I had a couple of friends that were in startups, and we always talk startup, and they were always talking to me about, man, it's different just being a CPG company and working a role. It's like, man, and my brother and I started like a music distribution stuff in Nigeria a long time. I always had a niche for, like, I loved startup. I loved the idea of doing stuff yourself. And let's just say, I failed once and I never got back on the horse, right? I rode on the I
Oh,
rode on the side of the horse, I said, okay,
it's
you
not
guys
over
ride.
yet. There's still time.
Yeah, I know. I'm 42 now too, Megan. So, risk capacity, the percentage of the numbers don't always look good as you get older. So I started staying on the side and then watching people get back on the horse. I'm like encouraging them, like, go, go, go. I know you can do it, be different, and I've connected with a couple of people in Northwest Arkansas. I have a couple of friends in Dallas too that are doing their own thing, and that's successful. And people always feel like your startup has to be 100 million, 200 million, 10 million. You have to be, I'm like, America, what? We have 357 million people or something, or maybe more.
Mhm.
And I'm like, there's something for everybody, and you can carve out a nice 5 million niche for yourself. You can carve out a nine. I mean, look at the GDP. Say, okay, give me 0.0000000 of the GDP. There's something for everybody, right? Because there's something for you. And I just,
Well, and
call.
one thing that I really respect about you and other people, like especially in the consumer packaged goods, you've had in Walmart. I mean, you all have just had some incredible roles. It takes a really different type of leader to make big change, and but in small ways,
Yeah,
every day in big companies. Like so when people are always like, oh wow, you're so brave, I'm like, oh honey, no, you're brave. You
yeah,
sit in, with all these VPs, and um you're smart and you're patient and like you're bringing them along. Like I've never been gifted with that. Like I'd blow up the room, and so it's
no,
cool, like
you're
how.
not giving yourself credit.
Well, I just know that people who are really making a difference in big companies, like that's a huge skill set that
Yeah,
it's just a different type of leadership.
yeah. And I
So
mean,
cool.
then to me, it came to, to your point, it came to just doing something for me, not just, again, just for my, like, I felt like this was a personal connection. And then I said, okay, how do I start? And initially I said, let me highlight, the thing is that, oh, I want to go ping this guy that owns this company. But I'm like, I'm in Northwest Arkansas, and people always say, sometimes you're looking for the fish that's not in your pond, right? And that's okay. It's okay to go look for the fish but who are the fishes in your pond that you can highlight?
I
And
love that.
and I think we everybody's busy in Northwest Arkansas. We don't give credit to the people that have done really great things here.
Mm.
I talked about what you just did, women in tech that just raise seed funding for a tech company that is booming, and and there's competition where you are. I mean, there's the stable, there's this, everybody's trying to do the whole digital thing, but you have now bring rebranded yourself to go against that competition and say, hey, this is where you need to be. That takes a lot of kahunas, and I'm definitely rooting for you. Then I talked to Leo in Black Apple and just say, hey, he's going against the Anheuser Bushes on the shelf.
I know.
Guys that are in Northwest Arkansas, and I'm like, golly, we got a lot of people here doing big things that we need to recognize. And I said, let me start out with our local and also leaders here that have maybe gone up at Walmart and places. And then I think that as more of the show grows, my point is down the line when we can, is bring
Well,
entrepreneurs to help inspire other entrepreneurs that are trying to grow, to learn from you guys on how to run
yeah, I love
businesses and
it.
stuff.
You said you didn't really get back on the horse, but you kind of did. Like, any part of the ecosystem, and I talk to women about that a lot.
Yeah,
Is that in order for women or people of color or anybody who's traditionally been underserved in the in the capital market, venture
yeah,
capital, is we can't just start companies. We have to start companies, and we need to invest,
yes,
and we need to mentor, and
yes,
we need to, like the whole system doesn't change. And so, I mean, it feels weird to put a little bit of my paycheck, when I'm living off a venture, into
yes,
some angel funding for, underrepresented,
yeah,
female
yeah,
founders. But at the same time, like I can't take and not put back in. And that's what I love
yes,
about what you're doing, is like the whole system just has to kind of change. And no matter what part you're playing, we're all, I think it's a really exciting time to be, kind of in this space. And we're really blessed with, just a country where we have,
the
opportunity, and
opportunity,
you know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so, this is a great, it's difficult, but it's a great time to have those opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the other things is America was built on small businesses, right? And
Mm.
we all sometimes forget is, and there's no shade against the big tech, the Googles, the Facebooks, the You know, everybody that is huge, right? That they can't count their money on one hand, or probably in a bank. They probably got to get, there's nothing wrong with that. But also, what percentage do they make? Then what percentage of the small businesses? America's run on small businesses. And I think we need to continue that trend. And we're seeing it, right? We're seeing it with restaurants. We're seeing it with, I talked about the craft brewery, right? It's a big market now, right? And the other thing is that consumers are now even, are are now going with that trend, because our kids are not loyal. Like, I remember when my dad was growing up, he only bought Sony TVs. Our
Oh
kids
my
don't
God.
care, right?
Yes. Yes, you're 100% right. It's funny, my grandfather was a Procter and Gamble guy, and
Yeah.
for 40 years. So, we grew up really understanding what brand loyalty was.
Yes. Yes.
Nobody builds it better than they do.
Yeah.
And, you
Yeah.
know, now that I look back, and nothing against Procter, Mars, or anybody that is working on branding, but man, they've got to be like, my kids. To your point, they really don't have brand loyalty.
No, they don't.
It's really hard to get them, attached to a brand,
Yeah.
and that's really a good point.
And they have influences. Like, they can see something on TikTok and say, "Oh, I'm gonna try that shampoo." And guess what? For the
100%.
next 6 months, they might use that shampoo. Then another thing comes out. It's like, okay, I'll try this.
Yeah.
Then social consciousness is very important to them, and they ain't talking about just putting it on your website. They want to understand, what are you really doing, right? And
Absolutely.
they're just different. They're built different, and I think small businesses are adapting quicker to all that than bigger
I'm gonna tell you
businesses
right
are.
now, when I worked at the Mars agency, I was put on the Colgate account, and my dad had some serious concerns.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, well, and I mean, we joke about it now, but
Yeah.
I love how you're framing this. It's such a different mindset today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, this has been so fun.
Thank you so much. Hey, Megan, I will just say thank you so much for coming through to bless us here at the Village You Don't See. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our episode with Meagan Bowman, founder of, I'll say, Stonewatch is the software, founder of Stonehenge. Stopwatch, sorry, is the software. If you're a CPG company and you don't even know, if I say, what's your impressions or conversions, and you don't know what I'm talking about, please pick up the phone and call Megan. Megan, is it stopwatch.tech?
It is, yes.
Stopwatch.tech. If you're a smaller CPG company that are selling on Amazon, Walmart.com, I think you're Instacart, any digital platform, please call Stopwatch, especially if you don't know what I'm talking about. If you don't know your impressions, if you don't know what your product score is, if you don't have a minimum of 8 images on your page, unless it's limited by the retailer. If you don't know anything about digital, don't stress yourself. Call someone that can help you. So, Megan, thank you so much, and shout out to all your team at Stonehenge Tech Lab. So we appreciate them giving you this time to talk to us, because I know you're very busy, and thanks for giving us this time. And I really enjoyed this episode. It's so awesome to connect with you.
Oh man, well, amen. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Yes, and the goal is we'll check up down the line. We'll check up just like any other thing. So
right,
hopefully we can.
Bankrupt or billionaires, but either way, I think we're gonna be okay.
We'll be fine. We'll be awesome. Hey, have a blessed day. Okay.
You too, man. Appreciate you. Bye.
Bye.